talking of, in my opinion, appearing seemingly corrupt, got to be careful, live in the UK, bullshit people in bullshit positions of power over trans people, we could talk about Baroness Falkner. So, in the UK, we have this organisation called the Equality and Human Rights Commission. The short name for it is the EHRC, which is very confusing because the European Court of Human Rights is the ECHR. Don't mix those two up. We have the EHRC, and they were set up by Labour at some point several governments ago. And the idea is they are not the government. They are like a government-aligned institution who is meant to fight for people's human rights. And until I think the Boris Johnson government, they were ostensibly doing that to some degree. Meant to be like defending the Equality Act and jumping in when there are important legal cases and stuff. And then someone in the Conservative government from one of our last 4 prime ministers, when we had 4 prime ministers in 4 days or whatever, when we had all that bullshit going on, someone there replaced the head of this EHRC with an unelected Baroness who has power over everyone in the UK despite never having been voted into that position, and will do for the rest of her life. And she was selected specifically because she hates trans people. So what the EHRC used to do is if there was a case like this in the Supreme Court, they would step in and fight on behalf of trans people and try and get trans people involved. This time they were obviously fighting against trans people. And this isn't a case of these Supreme Court judges. Obviously, I feel like they've done a bullshit, immoral, and wrong ruling. And at least one of them has clearly written some horrible stuff about gay people before. So I would say they're bullshit and I don't really respect them. I couldn't give you much other information on these people yet because I don't know about them. But also they haven't written, they've been as the way that Good Law Project put it, they've been arrogant and dismissive. They don't seem to really care about how much damage they've done to trans rights. They just kind of like, oh, fuck it, whatever. So it'd be hard to say that they were true believers, ideologically evil, horrific people. Probably just stuck up, bigoted judges that didn't give a fuck and don't really see trans people as human, whatever. Baroness Falkner is a ideologically evil person who's very clearly hardline opposed to trans people's rights. And you can see it from what she's been saying from this. So as we've gone into some detail already, the Supreme Court ruling basically has just said, for the purposes of the Equality Act, trans women, well, maybe we'll get into this in a little bit, but probably have their rights removed, or at least most of them. Doesn't say anything about changing rooms or anything like that. But Baroness Falkner has been very keen to jump in straight away. So this says, Equality's boss outlines changes on toilets, changing rooms, and women's sport. So, trans women cannot use single-sex female toilets, changing rooms, or compete in women's sports. In light of the Supreme Court ruling, the head of Britain's Equalities Watchdog has said, so that's her, Baroness Falkner, Kishore Falkner. She said the ruling was enormously consequential. She'd just been waiting for an excuse to write some guidance saying that all trans people should be banned from public. And, so it says here, Baroness Falkner has said organisations should be taking care to look at the very readable judgment to understand that it does brings clarity, helps them decide what they should do. Over changing rooms and toilets, Baroness Falkner said single-sex services like changing rooms must be based on biological sex. Something we haven't really said much yet. I probably should have said it earlier, but the Supreme Court said trans women legal sex doesn't matter anymore. What's written on their birth certificate, what's written on their passport, what's written in their gender recognition certificate, doesn't matter, meaningless. All that matters is biological sex. They also said, we're not going to define biological sex because it's obvious. End of it. They just haven't bothered to define it. I mean, obviously we know that they couldn't. But I also think, like, it's like there's a reason that these hate groups like For Women's Scot and Sex Matters haven't just given a clear definition of sex, which would be easy to do if one existed and would be like a core part of their messaging. The reason they haven't done it is because they know they can't, and they just hope that when they say, oh yeah, well, biological sex, they hope that people just assume what they learn in like primary school is probably true, and so they don't question it. But I mean, if they actually, like, they've now written into law it's your biological sex which determines these rights, but like, what's the definition of biological sex? Biological sex is genotype and phenotype, which means your genes and how they're expressed, and also your physical characteristics like genitals, gonads, breasts, facial hair, all of this kind of stuff. That is what biological sex is. It's like literally the material physical parts of you, which are different generally between men and women. So you could, I mean, I would say it's obvious and self-evident that I am female, because phenotype sex, which covers like all the stuff you can see, is the stuff that affects discrimination, sexuality, prejudice, all of these kinds of things. And it's the things that affect your everyday life, and it's the stuff that's changed. You don't know what anyone's genotype is unless you do a test. Like, literally no one knows what their own one is, or anyone they've interacted with, or their partners, or the person they've just called a slur. They don't know what their genes are. So genes cannot be the most important part of biological sex. I mean, it's also like, also for healthcare, it's not a major part. What's the major part is which organs you have and how your cells are functioning based on hormone levels. So it's definitely possible that someone who was discriminated against could just say, well, yeah, you've said based on biological sex, and my biological sex is female. They haven't given a definition that says otherwise. They can't give a definition that says otherwise. There's going to be nothing here. There's going to be no way for them to argue that. So it's definitely a hole in their argument. Anyway, it's a bit of a sidetrack. She says, and this is why I'm pointing out that she's such a ridiculous, like, clown of a person to be in this position. If a male person, here obviously just talking about trans women, is allowed to use a women's only service or facility, it isn't any longer single sex. So just a little recap. Trans women have been using women's spaces every single day in the UK across the entire country for longer than she's been alive. So her claim here is that the UK has never had single-sex services, which is obviously false, completely nonsense position. So this argument is completely stupid. Anyway, she says, then it becomes a mixed sex space. Right, okay, yeah, so every women's toilets and every men's toilets in the entire country ever has been mixed sex, apart from that's not how anyone has treated them. So that doesn't make any sense at all. She gets more ridiculous. But I have to say, there's no law that forces organisations, service providers, to provide single-sex space, and there is no law against them providing a third space, an additional space, such as unisex toilets, for example, or changing rooms. She suggested trans rights organisations should be using their powers of advocacy to ask for these third spaces, bearing in mind that she is the head of the EHRC, the Equality and Human Rights Commission. She is literally the person that apparently is meant to be fighting for minority groups' rights. And she said trans people shouldn't be able to use public spaces, and if they want to be able to use public spaces, maybe they should be asking for them. Like, who the fuck's meant to be doing that, dickhead? It's you. Of course, you're not going to do that because you don't want to do that, and you was installed literally sole single issue purpose was to oppose trans people's The Commission is expecting to lay an updated statutory code of practice before Parliament by the summer, and has said it's working at a pace to incorporate the implications of its judgment. I am not I'm not like worrying about this guidance, but not because it's not going to be bad, because I know it will be terrible. It's not like the court case where like, God, which way is this going to go? How is this going to come out? Baroness Falkner and the EHRC, I think, is going to just release the worst, most insane, horrific anti-trans guidance you've ever seen. It's going to say everyone, service providers, so they're going to mean like workplaces, gyms, hospitals, everything. They're going to say what you should do by default is create men's spaces and women's spaces. You should ban trans women from men's spaces. You should ban trans women from women's spaces. You should ban trans men from men's spaces. You should ban trans men from women's spaces. If you want, you can make a third space. Doesn't matter. Doesn't care. That's what you should do. That should apply to schools, like everything. I think that is what they're going to do. And I don't think there's really any doubt in my mind that that's going to happen. And I think we should just already be dismissive of how nonsense this is going to be. Like, it's not going to make sense. It's going to be stupid, like hateful on purpose. Yeah, and right. She says the Commission evaluates when the law is not followed by organisations and can speak to those bodies or use enforcement, compliance tools or whatever, and will be continuing to do that. So the EHRC is going to announce that everyone has to ban trans people from public spaces, and then they're going to start pressuring big organisations to do it. I think they'll pick some middle-class bastion. It'll be like Marks and Spencer's or something. They'll release this new guidance in the summer at some point this year, couple of months. It's going to be hastily written bullshit. It's going to just be a sea of gender-critical buzzwords, and it's going to say you have to ban trans women from women's changing rooms. And then someone is going to sue Marks and Spencer's instantly, and the EHRC will jump in and fund that and provide their lawyers and will force Marks and Spencer's to say trans women are banned from Marks and Spencer's. Like that is almost certainly going to happen. I'll be shocked if it didn't. She's pressuring the NHS to change their policy, which said trans people should be accommodated. The Supreme Court decision has been described as incredibly worrying for the trans community. She says it's a victory for common sense. Anyone who ever says the phrase, this is a victory for common sense, dickhead. Instantly. You know they're an irrational person who cannot argue their position, and they rely purely on gut feeling and having power, and that they can't articulate their position. It's just true across the board. Always. But yeah, she has also said, I thought it said it here, but let me just try and quickly find it. Sorry, I'm just being a bit slow. I said I was under the impression that she had said that it's okay to ban trans men from both the men's and the women's spaces as an example, and that trans people should just hope that there's a third space. I can't find the quote right now. But just while we're covering Baroness Falkner, who I think is someone that you should know about, who is a horrible person who is like trying to take away trans people's rights. A while ago, in 2022, there was a leak from the EHRC. So Baroness Falkner got installed, and most of the people working at the EHRC were good people who cared about human rights. I mean, why else would you apply for a job there? And when she got in, loads of people quit. There was like people saying that people were in tears all day. People who were like refusing to do their work because it was so horrible. Like, it created this by the sounds of it, a really horrible workplace environment. At least that's what some of the articles at the time were saying. But anyway, there was a leak from the EHRC which was covered by Vice, here by Ben Hunt, and it's just a screenshot of this, but you can find the article. It says trans people in Britain will be excluded from single-sex spaces unless they possess a GRC under unpublished guidance from the Equality and Human Rights Commission. GRCs are currently held by as little as 1% of trans people in the country. So this would actually be a less extreme form of the law than what she's now saying about, like suggesting that all trans people should be banned, not just the 99% that don't have a GRC. And like at the time, I was quite panicked hearing this, although I do have a GRC. It's just terrifying to hear that. I mean, what they can't ask to see your GRC. No one fucking carries it around. So all that would mean is that people would be emboldened to start confronting you and start being aggressive and all of this kind of stuff. So I wrote, and I'm just going to put my hands up here and say this was a distressed email, and I sound a bit hysterical in it. And it was just the emotion that I was feeling at the moment. But let's just read it and see what she said in response. I sent her this email and she directly replied to me. I said, "Dear Baroness Falkner, I actually cannot believe the news today. How dare you treat us like subhumans? What is wrong with you? We are normal people too, just trying to live a normal life. We have hopes and dreams and challenges in life too. We just want to exist in society like we always have. I cannot imagine how much hatred you must have for us to want to ruin our lives and harm so many innocent people for absolutely nothing. Abhorrent. I hope the EHRC is investigated and brought to justice. I could never dream of wishing such harm on anyone else as to what you have on tens of thousands. You should be ashamed." Clearly a very emotional email. Yeah, that's it. That's all I can say, really. "Dear Kate Montgomery," spelt my name wrong. "You shouldn't believe the news today. It is written without any relationship to the truth. I'll be writing more fully in a few days, but in the meantime, don't fall for the poor journalistic practices written to alarm. Kind regards, Kishwa Falkner." Sent with Blackberry flag. Blackberry. So, like, she took time out of her day. Like, she must have got loads of emails about this leak. She took time out of her day to respond to me personally and just lied. Like, what was the point in it? Like, to just, like, hide what you're up to? Like, what are you talking about? Like, it was a leak. Like, it got leaked. The documents got leaked about what it said. And now you're coming out, like, strongly supporting a worse version of that. So it's not like it was against what you morally stood for. Yeah, like, so what are you talking about? Like, I was worried at the time they were going to ban trans people who didn't have GRCs, and now you're going to try, like, you've openly said you're going to try and ban trans people who do have GRCs too. I mean, it just seems to me dishonest and slimy, and like, why is this person in power? Your job title is like you're meant to be fighting for trans people, and you haven't really done it. You're also meant to be fighting for disabled people and people of color and immigrants and people of minority religions and all this kind of stuff. But you don't really seem to do anything apart from write shit guidance trying to make trans people's lives worse, and then lie about it in emails to people. Like, what was the point in replying to it? She could have just ignored me. I don't even know why they did that. It's just so weird. I did a video about them a while ago, and I just put her picture in the thumbnail, like, on YouTube, by the way, and they DM'd me first. Like, I accepted the request. It has come to attention that you're using our logo and an image of our chairwoman Kishwa Falkner on your website. Not on my website, on YouTube. Like, just respond. I mean, you're in the news and stuff. We politely you'll ask to remove these as you do not have our permission. We would welcome the opportunity to discuss these concerns you have about our work directly. I wrote back to them. Obviously, they never replied because they didn't actually care. It's just such a weird, like, just fucking, what's going on? Just the state of this fucking person and this organization. The EHRC should just be disbanded, or whichever government gets in charge should just like not just completely reform this entire thing and put people who actually care about human rights in charge. But they should investigate everyone involved in it and look at all the internal documents and talk to all the people who were forced out of their job and like prosecute people. Man, I don't know. It's hard to know exactly what you can even say without risking people with way too much money trying to silence you. I mean, I think, in my opinion, Baroness Falkner is a horrible person, and clearly she is like campaigning to ban me from public spaces, like, but also seems to just be a loser and appears at least to have lied in an email to me, and appears to be enjoying this.